talk about the differences between Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and Meghan Markle, because these two women could not be more different, and yet they both married into the British royal family, but with very, very different results. And I think a lot of it goes down to their individual personalities. Meghan Markle likes to talk about being a philanthropist. Meanwhile, Catherine really is being a philanthropist and teaching her children how to do the same. Meghan Markle, the best she can get for a red carpet is a Variety Women of Power event where the red carpet wasn't even red. Meanwhile, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, gets to go to a diplomatic reception and a state visit in a tiara. They have both married into the British royal family, but have gone down very, very different paths. And while Meghan Markle, I think, attempted to see herself as the people's princess beyond just the UK to the world, she has broadly failed in that endeavor. In fact, their whole Hollywood efforts seem to be on the downward slide. Meanwhile, Catherine is going from strength to strength in her role as a royal. And I think it really is exemplified by these two women's basically almost clashing personalities, and how really Catherine has risen above everything, all the toxicity that Meghan Markle has thrown at her, and has continued to strive with this very poised grace. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle's vindictive vendetta has ended up tarnishing her reputation and essentially crashing her post-royal career in Hollywood, because Hollywood is no longer knocking down the door of Meghan Markle. So we will be examining these two ladies today and doing a side-by-side comparison, because there are some very, very interesting points that we need to explore. But if you guys haven't been here, this is Royal News Network. I provide y'all compelling royal commentary, so if you guys would like to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And I also have an upcoming trip to Scotland, so I know so many of you guys have asked about that. I am so excited about it. Links will be in the description box down below. I have done a couple tours with some of my followers. They've all been fantastic. I love Scotland. I was there several years ago for about 3 months. It was an amazing experience. I love Edinburgh. We'll be going to Edinburgh, Inverness, up to the Isle of Skye. So you'll get a really great feel for the whole country of Scotland. It'll be absolutely amazing. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check out the link down below. And I also have some jewelry you may want to check out as well, obviously, because it is Christmas time. One of the sponsors for this channel is Ana Lucia Diamonds, and they are lab created diamonds, and they are just absolutely beautiful. I'm wearing a couple of pieces today, and I just find them so incredibly timeless and elegant to wear, and I just absolutely love to do those, so I wear them every day. And there's some pieces as well that are a great price point if you're looking for some awesome things for Christmas, and some other things that are just exceptionally elegant, and you can save 20% by using my code ROYAL20. And I do want to do a brief shout out to my fashion channel, Royal Fashion News. You guys may have seen that we did a live stream for the Swedish Nobels. Tomorrow I'll be releasing a video going over all the ladies' looks and the tiaras, because it is great fun, because the Swedes have the most gorgeous tiara collection in Europe. And I will have to say, Crown Princess Victoria, she looked smashing yesterday, and they had another event today, and I have to say the behind the scenes shots of her hair and the tiara, oh, they just make my heart sing, guys. They really do. It looks absolutely incredible, so you guys will have to check out that as well. And so now let's look at this comparison between Catherine and Meghan, because it is very interesting, because obviously, let's get this out of the way. Royal ladies, they will always be compared to each other. We had Diana and Fergie, Elizabeth and Margaret, and in other royal households, we have Victoria and Sophia, or Sophia and Madeline, because they're all part of the Swedes and they're all about the same age. We have, maybe Charlotte versus Beatrice Borromeo, and this is over in Monaco. And so we have royal ladies who are always going to be compared to each other. And the way to survive this, I think, is to carve out your own role within the institution, not stepping on your sister-in-law's toes, or maybe your sister's toes, as the case may be, but carving your own place without trying to diminish what that other person has. I think that is the key for royal ladies. Meghan Markle did not have that perspective when she married into the British royal family. We're keep getting more and more reports of Meghan Markle just being an absolute bull in a china shop. She basically wanted to steamroll everybody who was already there, ignore advice, and really wanted to carve out her role without an appreciation for the institution. Because here's the other key to being within a royal family, and that is, if you're marrying in, take a year or two to really understand the work before going, okay, well, now I can put my own stamp on it, because you have to understand what the institution represents, what the duties are, what the obligations are between you and the public, and all these sorts of things before going, okay, I'm going to do my own thing, create my own role. Meghan Markle just didn't really like that idea at all, because she came in going, well, I'm a philanthropist. I was a former TV actress on a cable TV show most of the people had not heard before I met Prince Harry. So I know it all. And really, at the end of the day, her whole tenure has been an absolute epic disaster. And her time in Hollywood has been an epic disaster, and it keeps getting worse for them, because we have some interesting news from the Hollywood Reporter as well. I think it reflects Meghan Markle's personality compared to Catherine. Catherine had, I think, a great respect for the institution, took the time, and yes, sometimes I think Catherine and William could probably do a bit more of the sort of bread and butter engagements that some of the lower ranking royals do, but at the same time, they really are upping their workload, and they really are becoming the face of the monarchy. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan thought they could create an American court in the States, and that has not gone well for them in the slightest. In fact, it seems to walk from one disaster into another as people get more and more fed up with their antics, more and more fed up with their hypocrisy, more and more fed up with their sanctimonious attitude, because they feel like they are saving us, when in reality, they're just trying to save themselves and are failing miserably at it. So let's get to some of these interesting comparisons. And one I want to start off with is that Meghan Markle talks about philanthropy and being a philanthropist, and Catherine does it and teaches her kids to do it as well. So for example, I feel like Meghan Markle always talks about how important it is to be a philanthropist. So she's a philanthropist. You know, she wants to even merge entertainment and philanthropy in her and Harry's company, but you just don't really see her doing much of it. So what she does sometimes is she'll go to maybe do one charity event here or there for people, always have somebody photograph it and then share it on social media. So it's not something she does privately. It's always something that she has to do as a performance. And then you also have the disastrous attempt to make some sort of statement at the Uvalde shooting in Texas, where she went there, nobody knows why, walked around the memorial, laid a bunch of dead flowers there, and seemed to have some sort of camera crew following her. And she did it at a place that was very, very public. So you always wonder, were they going to use that for Netflix or something? Because that was just an exceedingly bad idea. But that is Meghan Markle. She can't do something quietly. She always has to make a public spectacle of it, because that is who she is at the end of the day. She's not somebody who appreciates doing something just for the sake of doing it. Sometimes I think in my personal life, I do charity quietly. I decide to give more money to something quietly, because sometimes that is better, because if you're shouting about it on social media, are you doing it because you really felt led to do this charitable endeavor, or are you doing it for the accolades you receive? Another bit of it is that Harry and Meghan seem to think of themselves as sort of crusaders and saviors. So when it comes to, let's say, their little conference or seminar they held on social media and the supposed dangers of it, there were several things wrong with that event. Number one is that they had parents there who had been directly impacted by social media and their children, and we didn't hear a peep from them. We didn't hear a peep from them. So the people who are directly impacted by social media, so their children have either had their lives endangered or have had grave, psychological consequences from being on social media, they were not allowed to speak to the public. But Harry and Meghan were. Meghan Markle even gave us this gloriously inept comparison to the internet and a car, which are two exceedingly different things, and safety features for a car just don't really work for the internet, because they are two very, very different beasts. You have one that's essentially an inanimate object that can be obviously started and stopped, and another one that is essentially a conglomerate of human experience and pain and tragedy and excitement and hilarity and so many other things. The internet is obviously nebulous, whereas a car is not. So Meghan Markle seems to want to also lecture organizations. She wants to lecture them about what they need to do without really doing anything. And it was rather funny, because there was some sort of quote, I think it was in People magazine, talking about how Harry and Meghan, well, they had gone more into big tech than they anticipated. I'm like, they're in big tech? I was like, well, lecturing a big tech company is not being in big tech. You can't just lecture them and think you're in big tech. You actually need to do something. So I feel like one of Meghan Markle's things is that she just doesn't ever seem to do anything. She talks a good game, but when push comes to shove, she doesn't really seem to follow anything up. And I think anybody who has worked with her in Hollywood can attest to that. She doesn't actually have a strong work ethic. Meanwhile, Catherine and William, they do a lot of things, I think, quietly as well. And I wish some of that was a bit more public, because the difference between being a celebrity, which Meghan Markle is, and a royal is that a royal really is about being seen and working within the public sphere, because you are being paid for essentially, not totally, but essentially by the taxpayers, because technically it's like tax dollars that help support the Duchy of Cornwall, which goes into Catherine and William's bank accounts in addition to paying taxes. And obviously you have the sovereign grant and different things. So part of their world is being wrapped up and being public fixtures of basically the public and the government. Now, they aren't advocating for any policies really, although Catherine has stepped into that realm a bit with her early child years program. But overall, their job is to be seen and to be seen helping. So it makes sense for them to have their visits publicized. And we got this great little bit too, because we had Catherine and her 3 children going to the Windsor Baby Bank. And the kids were tasked with grabbing different items that could be made into gifts for children in need. And they were told basically, think about a child your age and go ahead and do this for them. And I thought that was fantastic, because it's just a great simple way to show the kids out and about and doing engagements without having them be really in front of the public quite as much and everything. Although they are getting used to that, I think Catherine and William have been very good at handling slowly introducing their children to royal duties. Now, could they probably do more? Maybe. I mean, Crown Princess Victoria, her daughter Princess Estelle, has been doing royal engagements since she was a toddler. She did like her first solo one at 9. It is so cute. She is absolutely adorable, and she's very comfortable within this sphere. But I do understand that the Brits have so much more media coverage on them than basically any other royal child in the world. And so Catherine is helping her kids see the goodness of helping others within their community, because they live in Windsor. And I think what's important too about Catherine and even William is that they don't talk about, well, we're going to be philanthropists, we're doing philanthropy, because they're just doing it. If you're doing it, you don't really need to say it, I don't think. And I feel like Harry and Meghan always say the thing, but don't ever do the thing. Don't ever put their effort behind it. And I think that is what's really taking them. And so I think Catherine and William have done an exceptional job of being active within the community sphere and having grand goals and ideas. And yes, will all of them come to fruition? Probably not, but it is great to have an idea like the Early Child Years Project. Catherine has been focused on that. She's so interested in the early years because she wants to protect not only her children, but other children in the United Kingdom and beyond. Whereas, can you really think of anything Meghan has been behind that is like that in the same way? Because I think Meghan Markle would be much better served of having a singular goal or project rather than basically dipping her hand into every pie as the situation comes up. Because I feel like she wants to talk about race relations, she wants to talk about female empowerment, she wants to talk about young girls and women, she wants to support women of color in businesses, she wants to have a campaign against social media, she wants to push it back against the press machine in Britain. She wants to do all these different things. And so I wonder oftentimes too, if Meghan Markle is a philanthropist, what is her goal? I don't know. I really honestly don't know what her goal is. And I think that's been a big detriment to her as she continues to campaign without really a purpose. And you need to have a purpose. I think that's what makes you a better philanthropist, as well as having a purpose, which Meghan Markle doesn't have, because she seems to jump on whatever bandwagon fits her fancy at that particular moment. Another interesting comparison is that Meghan Markle, despite all of her fame, you could say, and all of her notoriety, the best red carpet she can get right now is the Variety Women of Power event. And it's obviously, I've heard people say, well, she wasn't really invited, yada, yada, yada. I'm not really here to debate that. What I do think is interesting, though, is that that's the best invitation she could get in Hollywood. That is the best. And she was seated at table 12. She was seated with executives of different production companies. And she wasn't seated, though, with other celebrities. And really, other celebrities didn't seek her out for a picture, because you did have Margot Robbie there. You did have Leonardo DiCaprio. You had a couple other people. And most of them were like, keep Meghan Markle away from me, she's kind of toxic, because Meghan Markle has focused her brand around toxicity in a lot of ways. And because of that, people don't really want to be associated with it. And so even if she goes to an event if you're the person putting it on, you have to think about the backlash. You have to think about the negative press. You have to think about managing Meghan Markle and her demands, because what we have heard about Meghan since she married into the royal family is that she has a very, very big head now. And I think she wants everybody to give her, her 5-foot bubble of space. She wants everybody to treat her as royalty when she was only really royal for 18 months. That's the longest she ever worked as a royal, was that little 18th month window. So it just feels very unnatural to treat her with such high regard when she didn't really earn it quite as much as you could say as Catherine. And so I think she puts a lot of people off, oftentimes with her attitude. And what has been really interesting too is to see The Hollywood Reporter. They came up with a list of their winners and losers, and wouldn't you know it, Harry and Meghan are in the loser column. And it's pretty awesome how they put them down. So let me read it to you. So they are compared to Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie for their global hit Barbie. And so they said Harry and Meghan lost. In 2020, the royal duo fled a ceremonial public service to cash in their celebrity status in the States. But after a whiny Netflix documentary, a whiny biography, spare even the title is a pouty gripe, and an inert podcast, the Harry and Meghan brand swelled into a sanctimonious bubble just begging to be popped. And South Park was a pin. The show's 20-minute worldwide privacy tour takedown in March was savage, and it was followed by Spotify dropping archetypes with a top executive labeling the duo grifters. Still, all the scorn and mockery beats otherwise having to attend 200 plus official royal family engagements a year, which sounds hellish. Now that could be the case, you could say, because royal engagements, I think people don't appreciate sometimes how hard they are, because you have to have all this small talk with people. You have to make people feel heard, even if you don't care about this particular sheep. You have to make it seem like you're really, really invested in the sheep, even if you're not. Those are the type of things you have to do as a royal, and they're not necessarily easy, and it's not necessarily a super glamorous job, except for when it is. And that is obviously states visits and diplomatic functions. And we also had a wedding this year for Catherine and William. So Catherine got to wear a tiara 3 times this year, including the one previously worn by her mother-in-law, the Queen Mary's Lover's Knot tiara, which is so iconic. People love it. It's gorgeous. And it has such this strong connection to Diana. And then you also have her busting out the Strathmore Rose tiara, which has been in the vault for 90 to 100 years, has not been seen. Everybody was thinking that it could not be worn anymore. It was too delicate. Those were the rumors. And then all of a sudden, Catherine walked out in that tiara and everybody went, oh, it was so exciting because it reminds you of the power of royalty, the power of these jewels. And as Queen Marguerite said, and I love this quote here,
"We don't count the carats, we count the centuries."
There is a historical connection to these pieces of jewelry. They're not just something of monetary value. They're often something of historical value. They're works of art. And they're something that Catherine gets to wear. Whereas Meghan Markle, the best she can do is bust out a Lorraine Schwartz evil eye bracelet. Nothing super fancy or exciting. Or even her Cartier Love bracelet, which basically everybody in the world has at this point. It's nothing special. Whereas Catherine gets to wear jewelry worth millions of dollars. And Meghan Markle is just stuck with whatever Harry's inheritance can provide her. And so while red carpets aren't everything, I think you can tell the respect that Meghan Markle has compared to Catherine is just so vastly different. When Catherine goes to the royal variety show, everybody bends over backwards to tell her hello. Everybody bends over backwards to see her because they want to see the royal. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle, she's just schlepping it with everyone else. In order to become as famous as humanly possible, in order to highlight her status as much as humanly possible, Meghan Markle went to Hollywood, where she essentially became any other starlet looking for fame and fortune. Because what made her unique was never her acting ability, which was subpar. It was never her creative ability, whatever that happens to be. We have yet to see any evidence of that within the scope of her work. What made her investable to Hollywood was simply that royal title, no other reason. The royal title and her husband was the only thing that made Meghan Markle interesting. But as she's gotten further and further away from the royals, as that time between Mexit and now it continues to increase, the scale's more looking like this rather than like this. Meghan Markle thought maybe she could even not only just be on the same level as Catherine, but surpass her by going to Hollywood. But instead, Meghan Markle has diminished her own brand, and Hollywood's just not really biting anymore. Meanwhile, Catherine is going to all these official diplomatic functions. She's wearing these gorgeous gowns, these gorgeous tiaras, reminding us that she is different than the rest of us. So that's what's really key about royalty. They're different than us, and not in a human way in terms of like we all have obviously our inherent value, but in a way of that not everybody can wear a tiara. I cannot wear a tiara. I can go to, I think it's Bernhard and Skinner or whatever in the UK, and I can rent a tiara for a day, and you can technically buy one. But anybody who privately owns a tiara doesn't really ever wear it. Meanwhile, royals, they have a reason to wear a tiara. They have a reason to attend these functions and interact with diplomats and people of high rank. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle is relegated to table number 12 at a big Hollywood event because that is the best she can do at this point, because nobody is that invested in the brand of Meghan Markle anymore because she has made herself just like anybody else. And the other problem is Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have also killed their careers in Hollywood, I think by being difficult to work with, producing subpar work, and showing not really any scope of creative talent. And even when asked at this variety event, hey, what are you working on? Meghan couldn't really tell you anything. She just said, well, we have some great plans. I can't wait to tell you about them, which is sort of Hollywood speak for she has nothing. She really doesn't have anything. Meanwhile, Catherine has the early years projects. She has all of her functions as the Princess of Wales, and she will go and continue to have more and more and grow. Whereas Harry and Meghan, I think, again, they're on the downward slope of their careers at this point, and they've only sunk themselves. And another big difference we see is the family picture we have of the Waleses versus, is this a family picture of Harry and Meghan? I don't know, because we never see their family together. It is weird. And I know a lot of people don't think the kids exist. I think they do. But the weird thing is with Harry and Meghan is that they're never ever seen with their children. Never seen with their children. Even the paparazzi pictures we get, somehow her kids are never in sight. And isn't that curious? Because you think if the paparazzi caught you off guard, wouldn't every once in a while they might catch you without your kids? Well, they could, except for the fact that Meghan Markle, of course, always calls the paparazzi and makes sure her children are nowhere in sight when she does. And again, she masks this all as creating privacy for her children. But yet at the same time, she really wants us, the public, to invest in her children. She wants us to call them a prince or princess, but she doesn't ever want to show them to us because the risk is too great. The risk is too grand. They can't show us a picture of them. But we need to all call them a prince and princess, his or her royal highness, technically, which they have, which I don't think they're allowed to use. But all these sorts of things, they want the public, especially the United Kingdom, to give them all these honors without ever dignifying them with being able to see them. And I think that's a huge, huge issue. And I think for Meghan Markle's brand overall, the fact that we never see her with her children, I can't think of her as a mother. I have no clue what she's like as a mother. I never see her with her children. I never, ever see her with her children. So how can I think of her as a mother? And she talks about being a mom, and it means so much to me as a mom, and all this stuff, and yada, yada, yada. And the last time I saw her with her kids was in old footage from their reality TV show. And I hate to say it's not that we're demanding to see their kids, but if she wants to make such a public part of her image the fact that she's a mom, then I think it's sort of important that we see her with her children, because otherwise the branding and the actual messaging don't connect, because we don't ever see it acted out. Meanwhile, Catherine, we have this gorgeous picture of the family together for Christmas, and I know some people think it's boring. I think it's actually particularly lovely because I sort of like the simplicity of it. Now, I would appreciate it if it was in color, maybe a little bit more interesting, but I think sometimes simple is really nice. And I particularly love seeing Charlotte, because Charlotte is, I think, going to be a great beauty. And I think she really, really shines in this picture. And I love how her hair is not super made up. It's more relaxed. It's more natural. It very much feels like a child's hairstyle. In terms of that, it's brushed, it's clean and everything, but she's not worrying about curling it or making it super fancy or anything like that. She's just being herself. And I think the rest of the family shows that too. They are a unit, they are together. And yes, of course, do they have squabbles? Of course they do. But we really see the family being a family. And this was exemplified even more at Catherine's recent Christmas concert, where all the kids were there. We got all 3 kids this year, which was so exciting. And there's a picture and perhaps even video as well of Louis going up and blowing out Charlotte's candle, and she's sort of giggling, and Catherine's looking on going, okay, hopefully this doesn't turn into any sort of fight. But it's very natural. We see them with their kids. So when Catherine says she's so passionate about this early years program, we see the passion acted out within her own life. She's not just telling us about it. She's acting it. She has her children with her. She's focusing on them. She's sharing them with the public, and she's also keeping their private life private. And I appreciate this is a very careful balance to walk. And I think Catherine and William have done a really good job of it. Now, do I wish we could see the kids a little bit more? Yes, I do. But since we had the coronation this year and everything, we saw them quite a few times, and we saw Charlotte looking very grown up and mature, and we saw George helping his grandfather. And so they have this quiet dignity as a family. And even the children, they're aware of their roles, I think, and they're also aware of the future, perhaps, burden that will be on them and what they represent in terms of the monarchy. And I just think that's absolutely fabulous. And it's just so great to see them with their kids, because when they talk about their kids and we see them interacting and parenting with their children, there is connection there. Whereas Meghan Markle, again, she wants us to care that she's a mother to her children, but never wants us to see her children. Because there's obviously celebrities that keep their kids very private, but at the same time too, they don't go into every interview going, well, I'm a parent, so yada, yada, yada. The parenthood is part of it, and they have some stories relating to being parents, but they're not going into every interview, every professional press conference first saying, well, as a parent, I think X, Y, Z. And I think Harry and Meghan make the mistake of making so much of what they do about being parents, and yet we don't see them parent. And lastly, one of the things I've noticed, especially throughout this last week and a half as we've had Omid Scobie's book come out, and it's been an absolute disaster and train wreck, and we have the alleged royal racist name and everything like that, what is clear too, and I think this is so important to point out, is whereas Meghan Markle seems to live in her vindictiveness, her spite, her anger at the royal life not going the way she wanted, Catherine has walked through everything with a quiet dignity. She is not responding. She is not reacting. She's just walking through it with grace and coming out the other side, I think, so much stronger, because Meghan Markle has this little nugget in her brain, I think, where she thinks, and she can tell us again and again and again, how the royal family didn't do right by her, how things didn't go her way, and that she tried as hard as she could and nothing ever worked, nothing was ever good enough, and all these sorts of things, that we would eventually move to her side of the aisle. Whereas I think Catherine has exemplified something I think we can all use in our lives, is that sometimes when somebody is being nasty over here in the corner, the best thing to do is to not react at all and just walk through. I think that is an excellent lesson to learn, because I think Meghan Markle has turned so many people off by her vindictiveness and spite. We see this, and it's like, who really wants to be friends with Meghan Markle? She seems to distance herself from her friends, her family, her husband's friends, her husband's family, and everyone, and seems to exist in this bubble where only certain people are allowed to be friends with Meghan Markle. And they seem to be only people like Meghan Markle, because if her preferred journalist and reporter is Omid Scobie, which we all know it is, and in his writing of Endgame, he trashes Catherine, he trashes the monarchy, he trashes William and Charles and Camilla and everything, well, how are we supposed to like Meghan? Because Omid has made himself unlikable. So how are we supposed to like Meghan? And I think the key thing is, Meghan isn't likable, because she's not somebody who can ever be pleased. There was a story came out recently that Meghan Markle, she was given an equerry and she didn't like him because he was black. And I'm not sure exactly what her issue was, but she didn't really like that, even though it was an attempt by the royal family to make her feel more welcomed. She was offended by it. And so it's like, so they try to be sensitive to you and perhaps some of the cultural differences you might have, and you're offended by it. But you're also offended when you feel like we don't do enough to help you understand the cultural differences. Like, you know, supposedly we didn't tell you what the national anthem was and you had to Google it. And that was so hard for a working actress to memorize lines and lyrics to a very simple song that simply says, God Save the Queen. It was too hard for her. She had to Google it, and it was scary. So how can the monarchy win? How can the royal family win? They're darned if they do and darned if they don't. They tried and they were told it wasn't good enough or it wasn't right. They don't try and were told it wasn't good enough or it wasn't right. Meghan Markle, I think, exemplifies this archetype of somebody who's just never ever going to be happy. And because of that, she needs to pull everybody down with her. But thankfully, for the most part, Catherine and William have never risen to the bait. Instead, they're like, you know what? We're just going to ignore her, which I think almost works better because she sort of looks like the crazy person screaming in the corner, because Catherine and William are just continuing to move ahead. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan seem to be obsessively stuck in the past. And I think Catherine and William will broadly succeed because they give the public what they want, which is a dignified royal family. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan are the reality show train wreck in the corner that's just causing havoc. And I think Meghan Markle is obviously the person very much in charge of that. And Catherine, I think, has done a great job of not only helping William manage the fallout with Harry, but helping Charles, helping the rest of the royals, being that constant steadying presence. Yes, sometimes you could say maybe Catherine isn't super exciting, but she is exactly what the monarchy needs right now. And I think Meghan Markle was the worst choice Harry could possibly make for a royal bride. So guys, let me know what you think of this video and let me know who is your royal favorite. Is it Catherine or is it Meghan? I have a strong feeling where we will be in this. So guys, thank you so much for watching and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.